The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar, Drop the File, Share, and Use DocuWare. It's going to be presented by our Regional Sales Director, Nate Rolls. I'm Joan Honig from the DocuWare marketing team, and I'll be moderating the Q&A. So now I'm going to turn the presentation over to Nate.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks again for joining us and sharing a little bit of your time with us this afternoon. Let me apologize in advance for anyone that can see the video for my haircut or lack thereof, but I assume that's a forgivable faux pas in today's world. So our purpose this afternoon is to discuss a little bit of what we've seen going on in the business community and the marketplace out there in light of everything that's happening right now. Certainly the topic being business continuity, really business preparedness and flexibility, as we all are working a little bit differently than we were maybe a month or two ago. So as this health crisis evolved, we really saw the first 5 to 10 business days was a tornado drill. Everyone was in crisis management, firefighter mode. There were a lot of emergencies that needed addressed, and the main focus that was put on things was business continuity, and it wasn't business continuity, you know, next month or 3 years from now. It was, how in the world are we going to enable our people, and should we, and what methods can we use to go to work tomorrow? Like tomorrow morning, we have to get stuff done. After about the first week, I think most of the emergencies were handled. And it was very nice to see most organizations turn their immediate focus and attention at that point to the safety, security, and well-being of their staff. A lot of questions about who was sick, who was healthy, how can we reduce the risk or the exposure for our employees. Obviously, all kinds of new travel rules or really travel restrictions were established. HR came out with all kinds of new policies. How do you request permission to work from home, to shelter in place? How does your manager approve it? What steps do we need to follow? All of this, as people became more and more distributed, put an immediate strain on IT resources, as everyone was trying to access systems and information that physically was in the office building from a place that was no longer in the office building, and that was everyone, not just the occasional employee. It put a huge strain on IT resources. Obviously, the way we were having meetings, whether it was internal communication and collaboration, changing dramatically, hosting a meeting for customers or vendors. We've all kind of been through the video conferencing revolution, like it or not. At this point, it's almost normal for me to be sitting in my basement on a video camera at this point. Heck, the word zooming has a totally different meaning today. It certainly doesn't mean the guy zooming down the road, you know, driving too fast at this point. After about 2 weeks, we saw most businesses start to make an attempt to return to normal. And I think a lot of organizations realized, hey, this isn't the end of the world. We're going to make it through this. So we need to look at our strategy in the very near term, 1 month, 3 months, 6 months out. How do we acquire new customers? How do we retain our existing customers? As they looked internally at their organization, they found some areas of the business that had started the digital transformation. A good example is your main business system, your ERP or finance package. Now, most folks aren't doing that with a ledger book in a 3-ring binder anymore. Most folks have a critical business system that operates their day-to-day transactions, and that's digital. But what a lot of folks found was there were gaps, silos of information within their organization that weren't digital. They were still paper-based in file cabinets or in silos of information. It could be an email that's only in one individual person's inbox and not centralized with all the rest of the content that was needed to make decisions. Overarching all of this was really the theme of access to data. And so companies were looking at accelerating and closing the gaps they had, and it was because they needed access to information. Critical on that list was the main business system. That was a topic we heard again and again as we talked to future customers and existing customers. That could be an ERP package, a finance system, an electronic health record system, an inventory management, order processing. You know, these are the top 1 or 2 critical programs that enable us to transactionally conduct business on a daily basis. And a lot of companies had those on their network, on servers or on infrastructure in their office building. And so the natural next step was to enable remote workers to connect or tunnel back into that main system with a connection through a VPN. It was very common. We did have some customers that their main business system was running in the cloud. And we did have folks that said, well, gosh, we've had that conversation. We've debated moving things off the network and into the cloud. And no better time than now to maybe get a little bit more serious about that. And so in all of that, we heard there were some tools that were being used to access that information. One was a VPN to get back into the network. And our reaction to that was, well, access to information sounds, from a DocuWare perspective, sounds to us very familiar, or at least a little bit familiar. And so we said, okay, is that the end of the story? If I can get access to my finance package, my inventory management system, my ERP, does that enable us to do everything we need to do? And maybe, of course, my email. And the answer we heard is no. At least, of course, email is part of it. We need access to our email and our line of business system. But what we heard from a lot of organizations was that there was more to the story than that. There was additional information outside of that line of business system. There was staff that normally didn't use that main business system that now needed more access to information. And these were things like PDFs or scanned PDFs. They were Microsoft Office documents, Word and Excel and the PowerPoint we're looking at right now. They could even be an occasional scan on a mobile device or a photograph of something that was taken in the field, maybe evidence that an item was delivered or repaired, or documenting the condition of something before work began that was submitted back into the office. And so we asked the question, we said, well, what does that mean? Why is that important? It turns out that most of that information was needed to support what was in the critical system. Example being, I receive a shipment, there's a packing slip or delivery information that comes with that shipment, and I need that outside information to compare to the purchasing information that's in my system and determine whether we received what we were supposed to receive, what we ordered. Sometimes it was needed to complete tasks. It could be a pricing catalog within Excel. Here's all of our standard pricing, and this is what the document we use, the content we use to calculate proposal and quoting information. And so our response to that was, okay, well, now this is starting to sound a little bit more familiar. What are you doing now to address the problem? For folks that weren't existing DocuWare customers, what in the world is happening to get to your information? And so what we heard from a lot of executives was, well, we have a VPN. We've already added capabilities to that VPN or expanded it to cover our distributed workforce so that they can access that critical business system. And by the way, we've had a shared drive on the server for years. We've been telling people for years to put their files in there, scan stuff in, save it on a system on our network. And the VPN enables that access. So why not access the Q drive or the shared folder through the same connection we do to access our other very critical systems? And what we found out when we asked how that was working is it wasn't going too well. I think most customers' feedback was, well, it's slow. It takes a lot of time to connect. And then when you open a folder, you watch the little green bar load. And then you click to another folder and find another green bar loading. And then you click to another folder, and lo and behold, the invoice that you were looking for is not in the folder that says all March invoices. So then you hit the back button and the little blue spinny circle pops up, and then you hit the back button again, and then you hit the back button again, and oh, maybe one more time. Now you're finally back to the beginning and you can start searching again. So what we heard was that tool that worked fine when I was in the office is now starting to not work as well as we would like it to. The other topic we heard, the other very common usage that is in the marketplace right now, is a cloud system, a file sync and share cloud like a OneDrive or a Google Drive. A lot of folks told us, hey, we converted our email to the cloud a few years ago. Part of our Office package, we have this OneDrive thing. We'll just throw all the files in that, and at least it works well. It's not slow. People can get to it. It enables that mobile access. And by the way, I can go download a little OneDrive app. And when the kids aren't watching videos on the iPad, I can, even from my home device, really quickly access my information. And not to mention, it's comfortable, it's familiar, it's folders and file names. It's what I've always done, what I've always used to organize the data. But really the challenge with that, whether it's a VPN that enables access into your network to the shared folder, or more of a cloud file sharing system, it's the inherent advantage of it being comfortable for folks creates a limitation where the organizational structure is purely dependent upon how people save it. If I don't enter a file into the right folder with the right name, it becomes very hard for someone else to search for it later. And certain customers, maybe those in more compliance or audit-driven environments, certainly also complain to us a little about security. There's really just an on-off switch. You can have access or not have access, and that's about as extensive as those controls or capabilities provide, and we need more than that. So as we learn more and more, talk to more folks, the conclusion we came to is it really seems like there is an opportunity for the solution set that DocuWare offers to truly provide some help to businesses today. At least as we looked at those broad general business challenges, 2 or 3 main topics came out of it that we felt we could be helpful with. The need to accelerate digital transformations. Can we plug some gaps, eliminate some silos of information, maybe have a more centralized source for all of our content to go side by side that critical business system? So can we help accelerate that? Provide access to the complete set of data that a business needs to make decisions. And can we do that without calling IT and saying, build us new servers and install a bunch of software and take on this big project? Can we do it nimbly and quickly, maybe through a cloud mechanism? And if we're going to do that, can we remove some of the limitations? There's a lot of clicks to put new files into a system is one thing we heard. The security, of course, is limited, and it really doesn't provide a lot of structure to how things are organized. So first thing, we can apply some structure to that filing. You can capture any content from any point of origin, from any device, whether it's born digital or born on paper. That structured filing means it's now very easy to search, and you produce accurate searches when you go to look for something. And on top of that structure, we can apply some intelligence and automate how incoming new files are saved, so that there isn't a lot of human time spent archiving information, certainly much faster than filing it on paper. We have many, many, many layers of security controls, very extensive and very deep security controls for access rights, visibility rights, edit rights, am I allowed to delete information, and on down the list. And behind the scenes on every document, we track an audit history of access, opening, viewing, downloading, deleting. For those of you that are in a more compliance or audit-driven environment, that's all standard stuff, part of the system. On top of the digital archiving or digital filing capabilities, there are some features that provide electronic, web-based, interactive forms that can be filled out and submitted in lieu of completing paper forms or fillable PDFs. Those forms, when submitted, as well as regular documents, can trigger a workflow engine to make calculations, compare things to one another, route documents through a process to notify people when human tasks or human intervention is needed. Today, we're going to look at a very basic example of all the different easy ways you can search within DocuWare. Certainly more intuitive and much faster than some of the tools we've seen being utilized in the last 30 to 60 days. And we deliver this all through a cloud mechanism at a very, very scalable, competitive price point. So at this point, I'm going to do my darndest to exit out of PowerPoint and properly flip over to DocuWare, because I'd like to show you some examples of that. Here on the screen, you see the DocuWare application. I am logged in right now as a young lady named Peggy Jenkins, and I'm using Internet Explorer to access this through the cloud. You can use any modern web browser of your choice, whatever your preference is. On a tablet or a larger screen mobile device, this browser is fully mobile compliant. So the look and feel, other than using your finger instead of a mouse, is identical. And for your smaller screen devices, we have dedicated mobile apps. Over here on the left-hand side, bottom left-hand side of the screen, is what we call a document tray. This is, generally speaking, the first arrival point of documents into the system. Now, I realize the purpose today is to show you a little bit about the flexible searching within DocuWare, but I do want to take a minute and look at how files actually get into the system. So this could be paper that you have on your desk in your home office that we load to a desktop scanner, hit a scan button, and as paper pulls through my scanner here, you will start to see some thumbnails of images show up across the screen. So this could be a scan of paper to get files into the system. You could also have a file that already resides on your desktop, and it could be as simple as dragging it over to the software where it appears in this tray. The scan job allows me to preview or not preview these thumbnails, make sure I like the way it's scanned, and then when I'm happy, upload to the system. The other very common place we see documents arrive is in folks' email. So the other very common method of getting things into DocuWare, we have a direct integration with Microsoft Outlook where, at my choice, with a few clicks, I can grab, in this particular instance, only the attachment that comes from this email, and also send it into this DocuWare tray. As documents arrive here, you'll start to see a little color coding tag appear on them. And if you recall, I mentioned we don't rely on user input to drive how files are saved. There are no folders or file names that make it dependent upon how we search later. So if I go to store one of these documents into the system, what we actually use to organize the information is a set of what DocuWare calls index fields. These fields on the left-hand side of the screen are simply the ways I would like to search for or identify the document later. In this case, the document's an invoice. So what we have up on the screen here is an example that might be relevant to finance or accounting. If I go to find things later, I might want to search by the vendor name or the company name. Things like the document type, which could be the type of piece of paper it used to be. Is this a delivery slip, a purchase order, a contract? Most documents have relevant numbers like invoice numbers or purchase order numbers, dates, and certainly dollar amounts. Within the storage of this document, we try and make it easy for folks to save by presenting them with lists of choices. And we can not only require that certain fields here get filled out, but that you actually make those assignments from a preset list. This ensures everything matches, and when you go to search for information, you always get a complete, accurate result. But I can do one better than that. If you notice these color coding tags that are yellow and green on the documents, you may also get a red one occasionally. This is a confidence level that DocuWare indicates for how automatic the storage process may be. So instead of filling out fields or picking them from the list, we can apply some intelligence to the document to actually read it and automatically identify every single piece of criteria necessary to save the document. So your typical incoming new file process looks like this. You select a document, preview the contents on the screen to ensure that it is indeed all correct, and simply hit the save button. Now, I mentioned we wanted to look a little bit at searching. So the first place we'll start is a standard search within the DocuWare system. This search button over here opens up the file drawer of the digital file cabinet for finance or accounting and presents me with that same set of index fields for what I want to look for. In this example, maybe I know that I'd like to look for everything by a specific company. So this search will produce a result of any document that relates to this vendor, Flying Tom. You can see there's a proposal here, some delivery or packing slips from the past, maybe a letter and a contract, 6 documents that match that organization. But we can do a little better than that. Sometimes you know exactly what you're looking for. If you recall this document type list, it was pretty long. It had a lot of choices on it when we first looked at it. So we even attempt to make it easy to search before you've executed the search, in that if I know I'm looking for information for Flying Tom, my list of available choices now here is much shorter because it only represents documents that actually exist for this organization. Maybe I just got a phone call from a guy named Dave, and Dave said, hey, you gave us a proposal a month ago. That proposal was given to my colleague, Thomas Rain. Thomas has taken on some additional responsibilities. He's no longer in charge of the project. I'd like you to take a look at that old quote, make sure your pricing is accurate, and get me an update if it's appropriate so I can take over for Thomas. Once we have the proposal, working with this document within Microsoft Word is no different than you'd expect from your desktop or your network share or your OneDrive. We open the document for editing. DocuWare opens it in Microsoft Word directly, and I'll go ahead and make my changes to update the proposal for Dave. And maybe in this case, I already know the pricing is current. We don't need to look at that, just change some contact information. And of course, when I'm done, we save and close the document. We now have a new version of this Word document in DocuWare with the right information on it to update Dave. But as I'm doing this, I realized, well, what other stuff might also need updated? What other relevant information for Thomas could also need provided to Dave? So we back up and do a new search. This particular example shows a keyword search of the content on the document, anywhere on any document, anywhere within the DocuWare system. So of course I know that Dave took over for Thomas. I know Thomas is with this company, but I don't know what other documents might have originally belonged to Thomas that now also need updated for Dave. If you notice, the original proposal comes back, in addition to what appears to be a couple delivery slips where Thomas's name is on them. Since these are simply verifications of past shipments, I don't need to update anything here. And it looks like this last document might be a letter, old email that involved Thomas. So within a few clicks, I can determine the only item that needs updated for Dave is the proposal itself. And with a simple right click, if I want to email that out, we can now send that directly as a Word doc or convert to a PDF to Dave and say, thank you for your interest. Here's your updated quote. Now, DocuWare is a very mature software company. We've been around for 30 plus years. And in that time, customers have said to us, we see the benefits of that search. We like how it works. But we've also been putting things in folders for a very long time, and we know not all of our staff will appreciate or immediately take to that method of organization. So we'll allow you to have your cake and eat it too. This new search is what we call a folder view search. Within the DocuWare web application itself, from the cloud, anywhere in the world with internet, we can do a search by a company. And what opens here is a set of folders. If you notice, one of them is Flying Tom. If I drill down into this folder, we get a couple of files that do not belong to any specific project. We get a project number folder here with project NN, and we also get an additional project, DE 2005. If I drill into the project DE, we see that there's a proposal document type folder here. And inside that is the Word document that I very recently updated for Mr. Dave Jones. Now, we thought that was pretty slick, and it certainly gives you a way to drill through folders like you would expect. But we had customers that said over the years to us, that's not good enough. So if you like, As part of the DocuWare system, if you go to my computer, you will find a DocuWare network drive that when you click on it, you perhaps want to search by company. And this should now look very familiar and comfortable compared to a shared network drive or a OneDrive, Google Drive, Dropbox type of structure. Here's my Flying Tom company folder. Here are my files not related to projects. Here's my couple of project folders. Here's my proposal that we've been working on. And of course, if you double click on it, it will open in Microsoft Word so that you can work with it as you normally always have. Now, we don't have enough time today to cover every possible method of searching in DocuWare, but there is one last example I would like to provide. On my screen right now is a program called Facturama. This is my example or my simulated main business system, finance package, ERP system within your environment. In this particular example, Facturama is a finance package. It issues purchase orders and bills customers and cuts checks to pay vendors. If you notice, there's some buttons across the top here that say invoice in, invoice out, contact. These buttons don't actually belong to the Facturama software program. These are DocuWare buttons that we have layered on top of the screen, no programming or coding or anything special required, to enable searching from within that critical business system that, from what our customers over the years told us, we spend a lot of time there, and sometimes it just makes more sense to have everything in that one place. So I can actually turn off these buttons and show you what Facturama looks like without them. We layer these buttons on top of the screen, and we'll use that same Flying Tom example again. As I turn those buttons back on, you'll see them reappear in just a moment. If I open one of these two records here for the Flying Tom company, and I'm reviewing something in our ERP system to determine what's going on, and realize I need all the supporting documents, maybe in this case, I'd like to see all of the documents for Flying Tom. One simple click delivers you the proposal we've been looking at the whole time, as well as the rest of the relevant docs for Flying Tom, the same 6 that we've been looking at the whole time. So this concludes the show and tell portion of our meeting today. Hopefully the information was somewhat useful, maybe caused some wheels to start turning. And at this point, I would like to turn things back over to Joan for any questions you all have.
Okay, Nate, I do have some questions. Can you also scan into DocuWare from a network folder?
Very good question. Absolutely, yes.
Okay, and for those people who don't have a scanner at home, is there a way to use your phone to scan in documents?
DocuWare has 2 mobile apps actually for cell phone type devices. One is more geared towards searching and is called DocuWare Mobile. The other one is called Paper Scan and is dedicated to scanning documents from your phone. You can actually use the Paper Scan app whether you have a DocuWare system or not. Of course, once it's scanned, the question kind of becomes, where does it go? So it's a free app should any of you all attending today's webinar like to try it. But in conjunction with a DocuWare system, Paper Scan will also enable you to capture individual pages on your phone and upload them directly to that same document tray where we saw all the different files come in the beginning.
Okay, and can you talk a little bit about DocuWare's security features? Is it password protected, or does the administrator have to set access limitations?
So we could probably spend easily a 30-minute to hour-long webinar on just this topic. Everyone who accesses DocuWare accesses it through a login and password. There is authentication required to access the system. The method you authenticate could be different for different customers based on maybe things they're already doing with their network or other systems. But you do have to log in with a unique username and a unique password. Once you're in the system, as a user, you can belong to different groups or roles within the system, which then dictate what rights you do or what functions you do have access to, what documents you're allowed to see or change, and what things are hidden, invisible, or read-only for you. So there's a lot of levels of security controls, but they can be synchronized with the rest of the company's network and systems to create the users and initially assign them the groups they need to belong to. And then within DocuWare, you would set up one time all of the individual restrictions and rights that would then automatically get applied to anyone that gets access to the system.
Okay, I have another question. Can DocuWare be synchronized with Active Directory?
Short answer, yes. That was some of the hints I was dropping in the previous answer as far as authentication and login. Some of our customers certainly synchronize with Active Directory, which may enable some additional methods to log into DocuWare that don't require everyone to have, another password to another software program, but absolutely yes.
And do we apply the same security when you're using one of our web-based apps?
Not sure I understand the question entirely. If you mean the mobile device apps,
Yes, that's what it
absolutely
means.
yes.
Yeah, okay.
Whatever controls or restrictions are in place for the main web system, the main client that you would access, also apply to the web apps. So if you're not allowed to delete an invoice from the finance archive from a web browser, then you are certainly not allowed to delete a invoice from the finance archive from your mobile phone as well.
Okay, and could you tell us a little bit more about PaperScan? Do you need a DocuWare implementation to use it?
So again, two mobile apps available from DocuWare. The first one is called DocuWare Mobile and is dedicated to completing workflow tasks and searching for documents within the system. Neither one of those would be an available function if you didn't have a DocuWare system in the first place. PaperScan, on the other hand, could be used. We offer it for free on Google Play or the App Store. It can be used as a standalone app on your mobile device to scan documents. Obviously, with a cell phone, you're scanning individual pages, but once they're inside the app, you can clip them together in whatever order you want to make a document or a multiple page document. And then you can send or share that document somewhere through all the standard share functionality you'd expect from an Android or an iOS device. The only place PaperScan could not share or submit that document directly if you don't have a DocuWare system is to DocuWare.
Okay, and what if you have a database with years of old POs? How would you suggest bringing that into DocuWare?
So it depends. If you mean a database of old, for example, PDFs of purchase order documents that we've scanned and archived over the years.
Yes, I think
I have to be a little careful with this answer here because I think the answer is the appropriate course of action may be a little different, say 2 or 3 months ago versus today, but the core reasoning is the same. I would challenge, if that's the question you're looking at, I would challenge you to consider the relevancy of those documents, those old purchase orders, with respect to how often they're accessed. Maybe not necessarily how old they are, but if you are frequently researching old POs because you need them for budget purposes or for planning new projects or anything like that, then there would potentially be some value, and we do have some mechanisms to make it easy to import mass files. There would be potentially some value in bringing some of that old information into a DocuWare content management system. If the urgency today is enabling my staff to continue to do business as normally as possible, and we're not looking at the old information very frequently, it might simply make more sense to move forward and implement this technology more as a point forward strategy than trying to bring a lot of old stuff over. But that answer is very specific to each individual client circumstances.
Okay, and I have a couple questions about some conversion. Can DocuWare convert an image, a JPEG, that's a JPEG since it came from a phone and was converted to, can it be converted to a PDF?
So generally speaking, any file that you save into the DocuWare system stays in the original format that you provide it to DocuWare. Just like that Word doc proposal, I was able to open in Word and edit like you would expect. So if this is a photo from a phone or a scanned image, say from a multifunctional device, copier-like hardware device, it really is determined by that device on what creates the file. So if I take a picture with my phone and my phone normally makes a JPEG, when that JPEG is saved into DocuWare, it remains a JPEG. However, at any point that you pull the file out of the system, whether it's a download or whether you want to send it directly on an email, you can, at your choice, always convert from the existing file format to a PDF when you extract the file out of the system on the fly on a case-by-case basis, driven by the need of that circumstance. On the flip side, if you're using, say, for example, paper scan to capture the images on your phone and upload them to DocuWare, we can start out as a PDF and don't need to deal with it being a JPEG, but either would be equally compatible with the system and would work just fine.
Okay, and can you explain the difference between the DocuWare mobile app and paper scan?
So the difference is their intended purpose from a functionality standpoint. DocuWare Mobile allows for search and retrieval of your digital file cabinets within your DocuWare system. DocuWare Mobile also allows you to see or receive workflow tasks. If we're automating a process and you need to input some information at a certain point, you can interact with that from your mobile device equally as well as from a browser. And if you have existing files, we of course included this functionality because we knew some people would need it. If you have existing files on your phone, like photos you've already taken or files saved in another app on the phone, those can be imported into the DocuWare mobile app so that they can be uploaded to the system. But DocuWare Mobile does not have a dedicated scanning feature. And DocuWare Mobile, for you to use any part of its functionality to any reasonable level, requires that you have a DocuWare system. Everything it does is because of something you're using within DocuWare. Paper scan is not dependent upon a DocuWare system. Should you simply want a good scan app for your cell phone, you can have that courtesy of us. So it doesn't require a DocuWare system, and it has dedicated functionality for capturing images that DocuWare Mobile does not. The most specific or the best example I can give you for that is paper scan. When you hit the button to capture an image, paper scan automatically turns on the camera and looks for an image that you're aiming at. It automatically sizes that image appropriately, crops out the border so that you only get the, say, receipt that you're trying to take a photo of, and it automatically initializes the camera. In other words, all you do is hover your phone over the document and it snaps a photo. That specific functionality does not exist in DocuWare Mobile. So generally, one is scan a document and one is interact with the DocuWare system.
Okay, great. I think that's all the questions we have today. We're running out of time, but thanks for the great presentation, Nate.
Just want to thanks again for obviously everyone's time today. Hope you all have a good one.